It still chokes me up that the people chose me to represent them for these 12 years. I thought we should report back on what we've accomplished, together with their trust and support.
You know, when Robin first ran, she was the first openly LGBT person elected to Denver City Council. You know, when she won, it was a pretty big deal for LGBT folks in Denver and within the state. She ran as an openly gay person, featured her family, talked about her kid, but it was a non-issue, I think, for a lot of voters, which I think is what we've been fighting for a very long time.
Denver's LGBTQ community shares the same priorities and concerns with others in our city, but we can face extra barriers. When I was elected, I was a mom, but I couldn't even get married in Colorado. My driving vision has been to make change that will last for people across this city who need it most, to make an impact that we can build on over time, long after I'm out of office. So when we banned conversion therapy or created gender-neutral restrooms, it wasn't just about the policies, it was about the community being empowered as partners in those wins. That's what real progress looks like and change looks like, when I'm keeping the door I walked through open and bringing others from historically disadvantaged communities inside to govern alongside me. The 2016 election ignited rhetoric and immigration policies that divided families and had vulnerable residents questioning whether they could trust our city. There were threats to withhold federal funding, and we were under increasing pressure to basically do the job of immigration enforcement. We didn't just say no, we made sure it was the law that residents can get city services here without fear.
We worked to pass the Public Safety Enforcement Priorities Act in 2017, which ensured that Denver wouldn't be doing ICE's job for them, that we would protect immigrants and have their back. And I'm so grateful that Robin Kniech did that work, partnered alongside so many leaders across this city in order to make that policy change happen. Robin just lives by those values of nothing about us without us. She does such an excellent job of making sure that folks who are impacted by a policy, it's not that they just know about it, but that they're actually at the table helping to craft it and get it passed and implemented.
More than 100,000 people took to the streets throughout Denver today. They started at Civic Center Park. They marched through downtown.
I'm a white woman. We have a lot of political work to do on oppression against Black and Latinos in our communities to protect civil rights. But we have personal work to do. Those of us who have white privilege need to spend personal time thinking about the opportunities we have that we didn't earn, like driving around without getting pulled over. And we need to have real conversations in our personal lives and in our workplaces, and we need to be a part of the conversation on race, equity, every day.
Well, you guys know Platform Open Space, right? This brownfield site in Globeville where people used to abandon and burn cars, I believe, and dump their trash. The residents wanted to improve it and turn it into an actual healthy open space with trails. And after a number of years of going in circles and back and forth, Robin was able to get everybody, all the stakeholders, to the same table. And I remember her saying, it's not a matter of if, but it's a matter of when this project happens. So in other words, we are the team who's going to do it, and so let's get started. She has this ability to empower people to get things done, even when it's out of their comfort zone.
Something I really admire about Robin was how she balanced being a mom and her work. And I remember there'd be snow days where her son would come in and he would go around and make sure all the recycling got into the big recycling bin. Or another time when she was thinking of ways to entertain him, and she put algebra problems on our whiteboard. And so he practiced his algebra while she worked.
Today, the affordable housing crisis is front page news, and it's just expected to be a city priority. But when I started on council in 2011, Denver's only role was to pass through a shrinking pool of federal dollars, 0 local dollars. no policies to speak of. That was just unacceptable to me.
It took one very motivated city council person corralling a lot of people over and over and over again, bringing in experts from other states, putting affordable housing providers and market rate developers and community members in the same rooms, talking about these things together to sort of hash it out.
Today, we're an active player in every aspect of housing, regulating affordability in new development, renter protections, preventing evictions, building dedicated affordable housing, and hundreds of millions of local dollars supporting all of it.
She stood in the gap. She is one of the most vocal and ardent proponents for affordable housing, accessible housing for Denver residents. She is a champion for the underserved and overlooked, the neglected of our city. And I'm excited to bring her to this podium. Let's give it up to Councilwoman at Large, the Honorable Robin Kniech.
I sat down with a judge, and she was really worried about the growing number of evictions. Many tenants weren't even coming to court, and those who were had no lawyers. We worked to get a human services caseworker, but I couldn't get support for a legal assistance program before the budget passed. So I organized all the council members to donate from our offices or personally to create our own eviction defense fund. The city eventually came on board, and it's still funding eviction legal assistance today, but we got it started. One of the solutions we needed that really challenged people's thinking was tiny homes and safe outdoor spaces for people experiencing homelessness.
Tiny home villages serve people coming directly from unsheltered homelessness. They give people a key, a roof, a door in a community immediately from coming from the streets. And they're intended to be an alternative sheltering solution for those that the sheltering system traditionally doesn't serve as well, and then help people transition into permanent housing.
I remember when we were working on tiny homes and we had really strong opposition from city regulators on one specific piece that they just would not budge on. But the tenacity and creativity from Robin just really moved the policy forward, and we were able to pass tiny homes.
She's able to really identify barriers to creating change, and she's able to invite people to think differently and help transform systems through doing that.
I remember one of my longest, hardest pushes for affordability was near Denver's crown jewel, Union Station. Long before I was elected, I worked with a coalition who thought the bus drivers and baristas who made Union Station work should have a chance to live near that publicly funded transit hub too. But there was resistance to affordability on expensive real estate, and design changes took away the land we were eyeing. It felt like an impossible dream. Then we had a breakthrough with the Ashley Apartments. I mean, here's a low-income apartment building next to a grocery store, sitting in one of the highest rent areas of the city, right behind Union Station. I will never forget meeting Pastor Pigford. He was the first new resident, so excited to live there. It was a rent he could afford on a pastor's salary, and he couldn't wait to tell me his ideas for helping homeless residents in his new neighborhood. Sometimes hope is the hardest part of this work. When it comes to ending homelessness, our success is invisible. You can drive by and see tents, see a man sleeping on a sidewalk, a woman disheveled in a park. What we don't see is a family with kids turning the key to their new apartment, a couple settling into a tiny home inside of a village, or the housing applications someone is filling out while they utilize a safe outdoor space with services to get back on their feet. If people really saw and understood these private outcomes happening every day, it might be easier to see that resolving homelessness isn't a mystery. We have a greater than 80% success rate housing people with services in this city. We do know what works, but we also know we're not matching the scale of the challenge. That's where the work remains. If people struggling with homelessness themselves keep hope alive every day they seek services and apply for housing, then surely our broader community must too. And we have the evidence, funding, and partnerships to keep working, even as I move on from this office.
my parents in their construction and factory worker union wages were what made the difference between working hard to make ends meet, but not living in abject poverty.
When I took office in 2011, the idea of the city telling an employer how they should treat their workers was just a non-starter. Having a voice on the job through a union? Forget about it. The fight for 15 took us 10 years to win. We began at the airport. With more than 10,000 workers serving travelers from across the globe, they used their voices and stories to build power, influence hearts and minds, and literally transform what was possible in Denver. The first ask I remember was from a security guard at the airport. They weren't allowed to wear their jackets over their uniforms as they were out in the cold shooing away lingering cars.
I knew Councilwoman at Large, Robin Kniech, since 2011. And she is our union hero, she is our members' hero. Because our pen is her pen, she considered like that, as far as I know. That's why I like her, that's why I stand with her, that's why I support her.
Ustedes construyeron este aeropuerto. Todos de nosotros son la ciudad de Denver. When you win, we all win.
Now the airport has a more livable minimum wage and worker retention policies to protect employees of contractors, like catering workers. Airlines or the airport can change service providers, but the workers get a chance to keep their jobs. Our work at the airport opened the door to a larger conversation about good jobs. But we still had a problem at the state capitol: a ban on local minimum wages. In 2019, I joined the coalition that overturned that ban. Once we got that done, we still had to overcome resistance in Denver, though. Those who didn't believe we could have both a thriving economy and a higher wage.
So why I really liked working for Robin was just how much I learned from her. She was just a really good teacher, and her professionalism was unflappable. I remember when we were working on Denver's citywide minimum wage, she was the one out there meeting with all of the restaurants in person about their concerns. And she didn't convince them all, but I think all of them left with a better understanding of what co-governing is.
Robin's approach has been, I think, this perfect merging of the inside and the outside game, where she can seamlessly communicate with the establishment and the people who are in power, and then seamlessly communicate with us, the grassroots folks, the workers, and bring us all together at the table, and does a good job of holding both parties accountable to what the ultimate goal is of improving people's lives.
What our members, what working people in the city of Denver need is true representation. And for us, Robin has provided a space where our members feel heard, and that representation becomes reality.
So 10 years later, Denver has one of the strongest minimum wages in the country. We're still the only municipality in Colorado to take advantage of the state law. And we have a thriving economy. Our approach has been stick with an issue and see it through. Never take anything on without a partner, and create spaces inside government for community leaders to have a lasting voice in the room where it happens. All of that was building a foundation for the future. I want to thank every partner, constituent, and staff member who was a part of this work. And it's because of them I feel so optimistic about Denver's future.